So welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Michelle Maloney, and I'm part of Stop Ecocide Australia, which is connected to Stop Ecocide International. I'm going to be your moderator today, and we're looking forward to some really fantastic discussions about some incredibly important issues. This webinar is particularly in support of Stop Ecocide International's motion at the IUCN Congress in Abu Dhabi later this year. And so the motion is number 061. It's titled Recognising the Crime of Ecocide to Protect Nature. And for people within the IUCN, you'll know that it will be voted on at the Congress, in addition to other motions that have been put forward. So this webinar follows on from one that was held in June. That was for a wider audience across Europe and other places, but today's webinar is focusing on our beloved Asia-Pacific region. So we're really pleased that Stop Ecocide International and our guest speakers are able to host it tonight. And for those who are interested, it will be recorded and it will be available. So I'm just going to introduce myself and then hand over to our wonderful speakers. So as I said, my name is Michelle Maloney. I'm the director and co-founder of the Australian Earth Laws Alliance, or AILA, as we love to call her. We're a small not-for-profit. We work primarily in Australia across a range of earth-centred governance issues, including ecocide, rights of nature, first laws, Indigenous first laws, and a full range of multidisciplinary issues across building new sustainable economies and looking at earth ethics and a range of other wonderful things that connect to governance. And as I mentioned, we're really delighted to be a kind of little home base for the Stop Ecocide Australia working groups. We have a range of amazing volunteers who come in and out of our space. And I want to acknowledge, if they're in the audience today, I want to acknowledge those wonderful people today too. So in this wonderful session, our expert speakers are Sue, Lyndon, Alana and Kazi, and they're each I'm going to introduce them each as it's their turn to speak, and then I'll be going to a Q&A session. Could I please invite you all to write your questions into the actual question space and keep the chat for chatting about issues if you really want to, but I'm sure our speakers will be so fascinating, you may not have time for too much chat. So before I call on the panel speakers to share their thoughts with us about the progress of the ecocide movement and also the motion going through to the IUCN, I'd like to invite our Stop Ecocide International support person, Robin, or someone, to share the video, the recording from the official representative from Vanuatu from the June webinar. And this is really important because Vanuatu are the official state sponsor of this motion, and they are the first state mover on ecocide law. So if we could play that video, that would be terrific.
We thank you for all being here today. We thank Stop Ecocide International for proposing this motion to the IUCN World Conservation Congress. We thank the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Kingdom of Belgium for their leadership on this initiative, and the esteemed panelists for being with us to share their expertise. Vanuatu, along with other vulnerable states, exist on the front line of climate change and severe ecological challenges. We have thus both of necessity and choice been at the forefront of legal initiatives to address these challenges. In 2019, Vanuatu was the first sovereign nation to call upon states parties to consider the criminalization of ecocide in the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. Since then, the concept has gained considerable traction, leading to national proposals in multiple jurisdictions. Recent criminalization of offences comparable to ecocide within the EU, and recognition of particularly serious offences tantamount to ecocide by the Council of Europe. In September 2024, Vanuatu, with co-sponsorship from Fiji and Samoa, formally proposed an amendment to the Rome Statute to include an independent crime of ecocide in order to fully address the most egregious cases of environmental harm, both in times of conflict and of peace. The Democratic Republic of Congo has strongly expressed its support for this proposal and together we have warmly invited all state parties to engage positively in these discussions, in the understanding that new tools are required to face new challenges. This is why we have sponsored IUCN Motion 61, recognizing the crime of ecocide to protect nature, which proposes that the IUCN study the scope and application of ecocide law and the ways it could support the restoration and rehabilitation of ecosystems, and which invites states to consider adopting ecocide laws at national and international levels. We hope today's discussion will lead you to the same conclusion that Vanuatu has reached, that putting in place a preventative law across the globe to protect the vital ecosystems upon which all our lives and economies depend will ensure a more responsible and safer future for all nations and all peoples. I thank you.
Thank you so much for playing that recording. And I don't know about others, but I find it profoundly inspiring, the hard work that people in Vanuatu and other Pacific places have been working on to bring ecocide into the international forum in such a manner. It's very, very important. So thank you so much. So now I'd really like, it's my great pleasure to introduce Sue Miller. Sue, I'm sorry, I'm juggling my notes and a few other things here. Sue's going to tell us about the global ecocide movement and set the context for the work that's being done and the progress that's being made. Sue is Chief Networks and Alliances Officer for Stop Ecocide International, which is the main hub for the global ecocide law movement. So welcome, Sue. Lovely to have you with us today.
Thank you very much indeed. And I suppose the first question is, what is ecocide law? In the broadest terms, ecocide refers to the most severe acts of environmental harm. And we need a law against ecocide because at the moment, there's very little that's effective in restraining those who are causing the most serious harms. And the evidence of harm is all around us. We can see it every day in the unpredictable weather patterns, the rising sea levels, coral bleaching, biodiversity collapse, pollutions of our seas and rivers. But the truth is, most environmental damage isn't caused deliberately, but thoughtlessly in the pursuit of commerce and profit. And the demands that we're placing on our vital ecosystems and the manner in which we're placing those demands is putting unmanageable pressure upon them. It's endangering our ability to survive, and it's endangering the ability of the other species with whom we share the earth to survive. My organisation, Stop Ecocide International, and our co-sponsors have, as Ambassador Tevi has just said, proposed a motion which is to be voted on at the IUCN Congress next month, calling on the IUCN to engage with and support a new crime of ecocide to protect the natural world from the worst harms. So let's start by having a look at this new law. And I've got I'm going to share my screen, and I've got a slide here. Excuse me for a second. So if you can see that, ecocide means unlawful or wanton acts committed with knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood of severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment being caused by those acts. And the definition was written as an amendment to the Rome Statute, which is the founding document of the International Criminal Court. And the intention is that it would be inserted as an amendment and then sit alongside the crimes of genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and crimes of aggression as the fifth crime against peace. Now, all the words in the definition have a weight and a gravity. Many of them are specifically designed, but I just wanted to focus on one, which is the definition of the environment. So the environment is defined to include the Earth, its biosphere, cryosphere, lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere, as well as outer space. So you can see that it's designed to protect every element of the Earth and the space that surrounds it. So this definition was drafted in 2021 by a panel of independent international legal experts. And that panel included the chair of the World Commission on Environmental Law, Christina Voigt, and many other very eminent lawyers. When it was launched to widespread international interest from politicians, academics, and the media, and it's been gaining huge traction ever since. More on that later, but let's first look at how an ecocide law will change things. As is becoming increasingly clear, the current legal and regulatory framework isn't working. It's not protecting the planet. The existing pacts and treaties are fragmentary. They focus on specific issues or geographical areas, and there are no effective means of enforcement. So ecocide law fills in the gaps in existing frameworks, and it provides some teeth. Most of the severe damage to nature is caused by commercial activity, human commercial activity. The foundations of company law, which govern that activity, date back to a time when resources seemed infinite, and they're designed to protect profits and shareholders, not nature. And too many corporations are prepared to risk fines or civil lawsuits because the amounts that they may be required to pay, if they are ever called to account, are usually dwarfed by the profits to be made and can be written off as a business expense. So the Rome Statute deals with individual responsibility and creating personal criminal liability for the key decision makers behind the worst acts of environmental damage will fundamentally change boardroom decision making. So the directors that are green lighting environmentally dangerous projects, they won't no longer have to decide just whether they can afford the fine or the civil damages. They're going to have to consider whether this project falls within the possibilities, the bounds of ecocide law, and that will trigger personal criminal liability along with reputational damage for them and the company, loss of market value. And investors in such projects will have to consider whether their assets might become stranded, which will cut off their revenues, and they'll steer away from investing in those environmentally dangerous projects. So it's got a huge and powerful deterrent effect. Another thing is the issue of social justice. Most of the damage instigated by corporations, most of the damage is instigated by corporations which are headquartered in the global north. Most of the damage is suffered by those living in the global south. And that's often in places where the rule of law is not strong. So ecocide can help redress that power imbalance. And then finally, elevating environmental destruction to a crime against peace underlines the importance of the environment, and it elevates the status of environmental protections generally. And it helps to bring about a shift in consciousness around what we as humanity find acceptable. So how do we get this powerful ecocide law in place? Well, it's already well on the way. Whilst the definition was formulated for use with the ICC in mind, a number of lawmakers saw the potential of ecocide law to protect the environment in their own countries. In 2024, in April, Belgium was the first state to adopt ecocide law based on the independent experts' definition. And there are now ecocide laws passing through the legislatures of several states, including Brazil, Mexico, Peru, Dominican Republic, Italy, the Netherlands, and Scotland. Last year, there was a major step forward when the amended EU Environmental Crimes Directive introduced a new qualified offence of crimes, what they call crimes comparable to ecocide. And that means that EU member states must bring the concept of ecocide level crimes into their domestic legislation by May 2026. And then earlier this year, the Council of Europe adopted the Convention on the Protection of Environment through Criminal Law. And that again brought in a concept of crimes, disasters, which are tantamount to ecocide. So there's a huge momentum building behind ecocide law. Recent advisory opinions from the world's top courts, the International Court of Justice, the Inter-American Court on Human Rights, the International Tribunal on the Law of the Sea, have all underlined the duty of states to protect the environment. And this is a duty that ecocide law can help them to fulfill. But let's go back to the International Criminal Court, which is the original focus of this work. As you heard from Ambassador Tevi, in October last year, 3 Pacific Island states, Vanuatu, Fiji, and Samoa, submitted the independent expert definition of ecocide as a proposed amendment to the Rome Statute. So that proposal is now on the agenda of the ICC's Working Group on Amendments, and a number of countries are now forming a coalition to build support among member states for that amendment. An ICN motion supporting the creation of ecocide will give this motion a huge boost, and it will help garner the support we need to get the international law over the line and create a true safeguard for the natural world. And I'm just going to leave you with an image showing how rapidly ecocide law is developing. I'm going to share my screen again. You can look at the progress that it's made from pre-2016, when the launch of the definition, and the amount of engagement that we've had from internationally with ecocide law. So traditionally, the law moves at a glacial pace. In comparison to how it normally moves, this has moved at rocket speed. So if you have a vote at the IUCN Congress, I really urge you to use it in support of the ecocide law motion. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much, Sue. And I apologise if I dropped out for a while. My internet is being very strange, and we've already discussed it. If I disappear, Sue will take over to introduce our next lovely speakers. So please forgive me if I disappear into the ether. But in the meantime, I'm thrilled to be back, and I'm really delighted now to invite Lyndon de Vantier to speak. Lyndon is a coral ecologist. He's worked with a range of international agencies, NGOs and government organisations in countries spanning the Indian and Pacific Oceans over the past 40 years. He's a member of the IUCN Specialist Group on Reef Building Corals, hooray, and has co-authored more than 150 research papers and technical reports. And Lyndon is going to talk about the importance of ecocide law with particular reference to coral reefs and the importance of the IUCN motion to support the ecocide law movement. And I hope I can hear all of your talk. Over to you, Lyndon. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Sue, for the wonderful summary there of what we're trying to achieve here. I'm just trying to share screen here. I don't know whether that's working. Yes, I'd just like to start off by acknowledging the organisations that co-endorsed this motion, and particularly the environmental and conservation organisations of Aotearoa, New Zealand. That team does incredible work, and very, very glad to that they've been able to come on board with this. So I guess most people that are attending this webinar will have seen this or something similar. It's the global summary from IUCN on the status of a number of the major groups of life on Earth. As Michelle mentioned, my focus over my career has been on the reef building corals, but there are a couple of things here that really stand out. Well, one is the cephalopods at the top, which have a couple of critically endangered species, and all of the others appear to be least concerned. So the cephalopods, as far as is known, are doing quite well. At the other end of this of the graph here, at the bottom of the graph, the cycads are in serious trouble, and you'll see just above the cycads the reef-forming corals, of which about 44% now, and we've just finished a new assessment as of just very recently. There's a paper being prepared on it at the present time, but around about 44% of reef corals are now considered threatened by extinction. And that's an increase from about a third when the previous assessment was done back in 2008. So things aren't looking really good for the corals at present. And the Pacific, of course, is not immune to these global pressures. This is a report that IUCN commissioned almost a decade ago now, the data for it. The report was published in 2017. At that time, the overall values were around about 11% of species in the Pacific that were threatened. And of importance, the reef-building corals, which of course, have built and support many of the islands in the Pacific, are declining. The causes climate change and ocean acidification. Other groups that were highlighted as being in trouble were the seabirds and the fishes. So that's our region. The main reasons for this, as people here are probably quite well aware, are marine heat waves. The very colourful top graph on the left there shows the degree heating weeks. It's a measure that the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration in the US produce. At least they did produce. We hope they continue to produce this because it's very important information. It's a metric that looks at the amount of heat above the long-term averages that's being absorbed into the Pacific Ocean, into the top area of the Pacific Ocean, and you can see that the terrible amount of heat that the Pacific has been experiencing. Particularly, this top graph is 2023-24, and the bottom graph here shows the increase in heat waves. So it's and particularly the orange and the pink colours or the purple colours here, they're the longer degree heating weeks, which are causing the most damage to the corals with bleaching in many countries, mass coral bleaching in many countries. I just make the point that mass coral bleaching was unknown to the scientific community until around about 1990. So it is a relatively recent phenomenon, and it matches very closely with this plot here in terms of the heat wave graph. One of the best data sets on these impacts is from the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. And the outside plot here is showing decreases in coral cover over this past year. So much of the Great Barrier Reef was not immune to the heat wave that's been there. And I would also note that Western Australia's reefs, which had been relatively unaffected, have bleached, and a large amount of coral death along that coast as well. Out in the high seas, we've been very fortunate that the High Seas Treaty has just recently been ratified. There's hope that will have some effect, although, as Sue pointed out, there's lots of treaties and the fragmentation is there, and so there is actually an urgent need for international criminal law to try and give some sense of oversight. Onto the recent legal initiatives. Obviously, as Sue also mentioned, the International Court of Justice has come out strongly in support of the need for nations to act. And the Pacific Island nations have been at the forefront, both at the ICJ and at the ICC, as was also mentioned previously. So we're very thankful for that. IUCN has been engaged in this, and this is a quote from their digest of just recently. The ICJ ruling clarifies that states must act with due diligence to raise ambition in their climate commitments, reinforcing the need for urgent collective action. As the global authority on nature, IUCN urges all states to accelerate efforts demonstrating how strong legal frameworks can drive accountability, transformation, and hope for a just, sustainable future. The IUCN World Commission of Environmental Law played a key role in the historic ICJ process, bringing legal and scientific expertise before the court to emphasise that the climate crisis threatens both humanity and nature. So this brings us to the interaction between the SEI motion and IUCN. In part, the SEI motion requests that the World Commission on Environmental Law study the scope and application of the crime and evaluate ways in which prosecution of this crime could help restore and rehabilitate ecosystems, with particular reference to the criminal law systems of developing countries. In my view, IUCN is uniquely and ideally placed in these respects as the globally recognised authority on the status of species and ecosystems for more than 75 years. When ecocide does become the fifth crime against peace at the ICC, its successful implementation will require appropriate assessment of victimhood, both human and non-human, and the damage and reparations. The ICC has clear tested processes in place for assessment of human victimhood, but not yet for human victims, although there are various approaches to valuation tested in national law. So this is an area where I think IUCN can be very well engaged with this approach. So future assessments of potential ecocides could incorporate red list and red list of ecosystem scores in a flexible formulaic approach to determining damage and reparations. This would provide a standardised approach based on verified criteria. It would be really an ideal basis on which to assess the potential ecocides. I think it's a very good opportunity for a rational and complementary approach to enhancing the capabilities of international criminal law. We need it urgently. The situation, as was shown in the first slide, is grim and getting grimmer. So we do need to act, and we need the international community to support this. And I hope that this motion receives the support that it should receive at the Congress. Thank you very much.
Yes, sure. Happy to start the show. Robin, if you can bring up my slides, please, that would be great. Okay, kia ora. My name is Alana Matamaru Smith, and I am the current director of the Ecologist Society, a non-government environmental organisation based in the Cook Islands. I'll speak a bit more about the work the Ecologist Society does, but I just first want to admit that I had to do a bit of research myself on ecocide law to remind myself about the concept. So I'm by all means no expert in this area, but from my research, I'm glad I was able to look more deeply into it, as it became a bit more clear on the opportunities that could come from this framework for a Pacific Island context, and understanding how the Pacifics can better utilize its legal tools. So I'll be sharing more on that in my presentation, and how ecocide law can be utilized for the Cook Islands and also the wider Pacific Island nations. Next slide, please. So yeah, before I get into the posed question, I thought I'd just take this opportunity to quickly do a bit of a plug on the Ecologist Society and where I work. We are the current IUCN member and BirdLife International member for the Cook Islands, and we are locally known as TIS and cover a wide range of environmental issues from waste management awareness to biodiversity surveys, predator control work, along with active community awareness raising efforts on the environmental impacts of deep sea mining, given our Cook Islands government currently has interests in deep sea mining within our national waters and also beyond national jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So just to set a bit more of a scene for the Pacific's environment and what's at stake, our land and our shared Pacific Ocean is seen not just as a resource to Pacific people, but it is our home, it is our culture, and it plays a significant part of our identity. Our shared Pacific Ocean in particular is considered our source of life. And in the Cook Islands, we call our ocean Te Moana Nui o Kiva, which means the great ocean that connects us all. It's the ocean that feeds us, it protects us, and it binds our stories together. Today, unfortunately, these vital ecosystems are under threat from climate change, coral bleaching, ocean pollution, overfishing, and the looming new threat of deep sea mining. But with the movement of recognizing ecocide as an international crime, this concept could provide the Pacific with legal environmental grounds and leadership opportunities to be drivers of global environmental governance. Next slide, please. So how can the Pacific benefit from ecocide law? When we consider climate vulnerability, the Pacific are at the front line, from experiencing rising sea levels, stronger storms, saltwater intrusions into our Aotearoa patches. These are not future risks. These are already taking place today. So ecocide law can assist climate vulnerability by targeting the roots caused by holding the biggest polluters and destroyers accountable. Ecocide law can be used to better protect our oceans, the Blue Pacific as we know it, which provides food security, contributes to global marine biodiversity, but is yet threatened by overfishing, plastics, pollution, and now this push for deep sea mining. But we have ecocide law that the Pacific can gain as a legal tool to prevent activities that could cause irreversible marine damage. When considering justice and equity, we in the Pacific contribute the least to environmental destruction, but we do suffer the most. So ecocide law would be able to shift responsibilities from small island states back to the industries and countries that profit from harmful practice. As for cultural values, the Pacific culture, it teaches us how to care for our environment. In the Cook Islands, as an example, we call this manatiaki, where each and every one of us is bestowed with this power of being a guardian over our environment, where we don't own our environment and what's in it, but instead are caretakers for these natural resources and have been given the responsibility to protect it for our future generations. Ecocide law reflects these similar cultural values, embedding respect for nature into global justice. Next slide, please. So one of the most compelling reasons to support the recognition of ecocide law as an international crime is through its legal empowerment that it could offer to small island nations and the leadership opportunity it could provide the Pacific region as a whole. Currently, the international legal framework, as Sue had already mentioned, it does not adequately protect vulnerable ecosystems, nor does it aid in deterring those who commit large-scale environmental harm across borders. Often we find the Pacific is left with limited resources when external actors engage in destructive practices within or near our exclusive economic zones, whether this be through illegal fishing, marine pollution, or proposed deep sea mining operations. Small island developing states are frequently excluded from meaningful decision making, and in some cases can lack the legal and financial resources to restore international dispute mechanisms. So by recognizing ecocide law as an international crime, recognizing ecocide as an international crime, states would have a clear legal pathway to pursue accountability, not through fragmented national law, but through a unified international legal standard. Ecocide law has also the powers to place individual criminal responsibility on those in positions of decision-making authority, whether in government or the private sector, who knowingly engage or imprimat of the widespread destruction of ecosystems. So the movement of ecocide law could also provide an opportunity for Pacific nations to push for more normative development in national criminal law, filling a critical gap in global environmental governance. Vanuatu, as it's already been explained by my colleagues, has already shown how this can be done in regards to intergenerational justice and state responsibility via the ICJ Climate Change Initiative, which was supported by over 130 states. By taking a leadership role in this space, the Pacific region has the opportunity to influence the legal narrative around environmental protection, climate justice, and Indigenous custodianship. Next slide, please. So the opportunities include ecocide law acting as a common stepping stone for Pacific Island nations to work together on shared environmental threats. Ecocide law could act as a deterrent to foreign companies or actors considering environmental harmful activities in or near our marine territory, such as deep sea mining or large-scale dumping of waste. It could also provide Pacific nations a legitimate platform to engage in international legal diplomacy, as well as allowing for a blending of customary and international legal frameworks. The challenges could include enforcement limitations, whereby larger polluting nations do not ratify the law, the potential for political pushback from powerful commercial or geopolitical partners, and the need for regional unity, particularly regional organizations like the Pacific Islands Forum. Next slide, please. Perfect. So just to conclude, establishing ecocide law as an international crime will provide Pacific Island nations with a legal safeguarding option that could be used against activities that threaten the health of our fragile Pacific ecosystems and the well-being of our communities. It also provides an opportunity to build a bridge between international legal systems and Indigenous environmental knowledge, opening the door to more culturally respectful approaches to environmental protection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alana. And apologies to those who are in the audience. We've lost our moderator, and you lost me as well. I'm the backup moderator, but I'm back in for the moment, I hope. So now it's time to go to a little further north and focus on Asia. Kazi Amdadul Hoque is Senior Director of Strategic Planning and Head of Climate Action with Friendship Bangladesh, employing 3,200 people, mainly in hard-to-reach and remote areas. Friendship is an international social purpose organization guided by a vision of the world where people, especially the hard-to-reach and unaddressed, have equal opportunities to live with dignity and hope. And it's worth noting here that Saida Rizwana Hassan, who is a Bangladeshi lawyer, environment, and currently advisor to the interim government of Bangladesh, an acting minister for environment, forests and climate change, was part of the independent panel which drafted the ecocide law definition. Kazi, over to you.
Great, thank you. I'll straight go for the presentation because we have very limited time. First of all, I must say, it's a very timely initiative, and I would try my best to justify why we are really heading for ecocide law. Let me write. Okay, good. So first of all, Bangladesh is a delta nation. It's the world's largest river delta, 700 rivers, population 170 million. Climate hotspot topping the list within 10. And we are proud of our Sundarban mangroves forest. Is the largest mangrove forest in the world, and 10,000 square kilometers, which is 60% in Bangladesh. We believe, and we to believe, and we also take care of, because this is a global carbon sink. absorb 4.5 million tons per year. It's a biodiversity home for 260 bird species, 42 mammals, including Bengal tiger. The coastal stress with 30 million people exposed to salinity intrusion. And however, we do feel we are adaptation leader and global model for community-based resilience. And we belong to Southeast Asia, as East Himalayan region, and where is 2 billion people, 1/4 of humanity. Himalaya, which is a water tower, is 1.3 billion people serving by Himalaya. Biodiversity 15 to 20%, and climate risk, forest, mangroves, Southeast Asia, world largest, I mentioned already, but we have sadly urban pressure, pollution, waste, freshwater stress, and we do taking forward our life with the resilience, with traditional knowledge and regional cooperation. You just see the map and you'll get an impression how we are interlinked with Southeast Asia, Himalayan region, largest, tallest mountain in this world, largest, longest river in the world, largest mangrove forest in the world, largest deltaic nation in the world. I will focus today for Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, there are some ecologically critical areas. Sundarban is one of those. I'll speak about Sundarban, I'll speak about mangroves, I'll speak about wetland very quick. In 1999, government, declared 10-kilometer buffer zone around the Sundarban as an ecological critical area to protect UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is Sundarban. However, subsequent action by the Department of Environment immediately 190 industrial plants approved and functioning now, including cement factory, LPG plant, well refineries. Many of these facilities are located in Mongla, is within 2-3 kilometers of Sundarban. What happened? I remind you again, Sundarban is a Ramsar site, World Heritage, 300 plant species, 1760 animal species, and 2 million people depend directly or indirectly on Sundarban. And these people are mostly poor, resource dependent, who rely on fishing, crab, shrimp collection, and honey harvesting. But these close to Sundarban, not within 10 kilometer, 10.5 kilometer, 1320 megawatt fired power plant established. Caused, air pollution, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, mercury, and, particles, metals, water use, actually large cooling water, thermal salinity charges, heavy metal acidity, harms fisheries and roots, habitat loss, plant, roads, fragmentation, biodiversity decline significantly, including tigers, dolphins, birds, fish. Coal burned 4.75 million tons per year. So we believe, so impact accelerated mangroves degradation and species risk. Already, IUCN revealed that 19 birds and 11 mammals and 1 reptile in Bangladesh Sundarban are extinct. Sad. So next, I will tell you a story for wetland. We call Itna Mithapukur, road. This is our ecosystem for 14 hours in Bangladesh. It is 14,000 square kilometers, 15 sub-districts, 7 districts. And on the Haur, in the middle of Haur, this is the wetland, government built road construction 29 kilometers. Without proper environmental assessment, which block water flow, caused floods, damaged thousands of hectares of paddy crops, disrupts agriculture, livelihood, wetland biodiversity. Haurs actually is Bangla word, typically translated as a wetland, is more specifically seasonal floodplain wetland. Now come to the brick lane. So air pollution, brick lane caused for air pollution 11% of national PM 2.5 and 17% carbon emission. Health rate 6,000 premature adult death each year because of the air pollution. Soil degradation, 40 to 80% because the big plane use topsoil of the fertile land, and it caused declines 3% of rice production. Water pollution, noise pollution. 60% of the big plane are illegal. Very recently, in 25, 1,000 illegal crane, sealed by the government. Immediate after few days, 75% of those cranes were back in operation. Let me take you our Chittagong area, which is southern part of it, is a port city. There was a huge mangrove, it's called Chakoria Sundarban mangrove. From 1976 to 1989, 4,000 hectares, around 30% lost to shrimp farming and deforestation. Total loss around 8,000 hectares. Ecosystems is stake. US dollar cost, ecosystem service cost around US dollar 16 million per year. So it's we lost natural protection, cyclone buffer zone, erosion for 7,000 hectares farmland, biodiversity decline, crab, birds, pipelines, salinity, and agriculture shrimp ponds is really affecting crop, freshwater. Economic service lost around US dollar 16 million. Implications, severe threat to livelihood, agriculture, biodiversity, and climate resilience. And I'll share with you one, I know I will not share any more example. I'll straightway tell you why we are struggling, why we are fighting for, the motion 061, because it's a justice for people and planet. It will protect communities, it will unchecked, environmental harm. It's question of global accountability to make sure fifth international crime under the Rome Statute. And if we really want to make sure sustainable development safeguard, we have no other choice. And above all, moral and cultural framing. South Asia has deep traditions of respecting nature. Recognized ecocide translates this ethos. And we are really undermining this, and that is not really good. And I will now take you to our Sundarban forest for a few minutes. I have 10 minutes. I just made my presentation faster to screen this video. Thank you.
Thank you so much to all our amazing speakers who've all illuminated this topic so clearly. I want to thank everybody who's attended and stayed with us slightly over the time for your interest and your engagement. I hope what you've heard has encouraged you to support this motion when it comes to the vote at the IUCN. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.